Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. 9 soldiers killed last night when 2 Black Hawk helicopters collided in Kentucky. One witness says it appeared as though they were flying close to one another. Now an aircraft safety team is investigating the crash. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
I would like to express our deepest sympathies to the families of our fallen soldiers.
9 soldiers with the 101st Airborne Division were killed Wednesday night when 2 Black Hawk helicopters crashed, leaving no survivors. 5 soldiers were in one helicopter and 4 were in the other when they were conducting a nighttime training exercise in Kentucky, according to Army officials. General John Lubis, Deputy Commander of Operations for the 101st Airborne Division, addressed the situation at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where all of the fallen soldiers were stationed.
The Army has deployed an aircraft safety team from Fort Rucker, Alabama, who will arrive later today and will immediately initiate an investigation to help us understand what caused this crash in order to prevent accidents like this from happening again.
He mentioned that the Black Hawk helicopters have something similar to the black boxes in passenger aircraft and that they're hoping it will provide more information to better understand exactly what happened. He also said the helicopter crews were wearing night vision goggles during the training exercise. A 1989 study on night vision goggles posted on the National Institutes of Health website shows that depth perception after prolonged usage of night vision goggles was not affected. However, there was a misalignment between the 2 eyes when using night vision goggles on 12 of the 24 tested missions. A witness who lives about a mile away from where the crash occurred, Nick Tomaszewski, said he saw 2 helicopters flying, quote, kind of close together moments before they crashed in Trigg County, Kentucky. The helicopters came down in a field and there were no casualties on the ground. General Pat Ryder, the Pentagon press secretary, says the U.S. military, quote, takes safety very, very seriously.
And this will be one of those things that we're just going to always have to work at and just never be satisfied with. And so we're obviously committed to doing that because at the end of the day, it's about ensuring that we have U.S. service members who are ready to go wherever we need them to go, when we need them to go there, to do the important work that we're asking them to do on behalf of our nation.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear also gave his condolences to the victims' families and added this.
We're going to do what we always do. We're going to wrap our arms around these families. And we're going to be there with them, not just for the days, but the weeks and the months and the years to come. My faith teaches me that while the body is mortal, the soul is eternal, and we will see them again.
Jason Perry, NTD News.
In a turnaround, President Biden says he will sign a bill to end the COVID-19 emergency if it reaches his desk. But some Democrats say the administration should have done a better job keeping them informed along the way. NTD's Iris Tao brings us more from the White House.
President Biden will not veto a GOP-led resolution that will end the COVID-19 national emergency a month earlier than scheduled. That's according to the White House, which told media outlets that Biden still strongly opposes the resolution, but if this bill comes to his desk, he will sign it. And today, the press secretary defending that about-face.
The bill that just passed would only lift the national emergency, which doesn't impact Title 42 or COVID authorities like for testing and for treatments. We are in a different place and time than we were in January.
The GOP-led bill to end the national emergency sooner passed the House in February and then passed the Senate just this Wednesday. Dozens of Senate Democrats joined Republicans in backing the measure after being told that Biden would not veto it. But back in January, Biden voiced opposition to the bill, insisting that a national emergency should be extended to May 11th to ensure an orderly transition. The latest change in stance, meanwhile, prompting House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to say this when signing the bill on Thursday.
Okay, this is a very good lesson for everyone whenever they want to produce a bill and the president says he's going to veto it. He's going to learn to end up beside it, and so congratulations.
McCarthy is now calling on Biden to sign the bill immediately, but some Democrats are voicing frustration about the administration's change of stance on short notice. Congressman Dan Kildee tells Fox News that the White House lack of communication with House Democrats has been frustrating, adding that going forward, Democrats will need greater clarity out of the administration. And this marks the second time in the new Congress that such an unexpected shift happened. Just weeks ago, Biden announced he would not veto a GOP resolution to block changes to D.C.'s criminal code. And that, too, marked a reversal from his previous stance and caught some Democrats by surprise. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, WETTD News.
The Republican-led House today passing an energy bill meant to make it easier to produce oil and critical minerals from right here at home, with some Democrats decrying it as a handout to big oil. House Speaker McCarthy pins his hopes on the possibility that the White House opts to favor the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more from Capitol Hill.
This bill, designated as H.R. 1 to emphasize Republicans' priority, aims to increase energy production here at home, and it aims to do this through a number of measures, including waiving environmental review requirements and restricting the president's ability to block certain energy projects, like the Keystone XL pipeline, for example. The bill also aims to open the U.S. up to mine for critical minerals, which are needed to produce renewable energy products. That's a market that's currently dominated by China.
Whether it's Russia, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela. He wants us to get our solar panels and windmills and batteries from China because he won't let us mine in America. Well, you know what? We stood up for America there too today.
But the White House vows to veto the bill, saying that it replaces pro-consumer policies with a thinly veiled license to pollute. But the question remains open as to whether or not the White House will consider some form of energy-related bill, especially as we inch closer to the 2024 presidential race. Remember President Biden shifting his messaging around oil just last month when he said this at the State of the Union.
And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells and all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade.
Despite this, Democrat leaders in both the House and the Senate have launched a forceful opposition to the GOP's bill.
What's the Republican plan? Triple down on allegiance to big oil, give away more federal land, invite more offshore drilling, unleash more pollution into our water and our air and our land.
We have a Republican House, we have a Democratic Senate. No party is going to be able to jam its way through without consulting the other side.
Republicans are putting their hopes on moderate Democrats in the Senate and counting on the White House changing its mind. Take a look at what Speaker McCarthy told me about their plans for moving this bill forward.
Senator Schumer says that this bill is dead on arrival in the Senate. I'm wondering if you're in conversation with Senators Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema to see if there's a path forward.
I talked to Joe Manchin often and Kyrsten Sinema. Those seem like two people that want to do a lot of things. That's what we heard from the president when he said he wanted to stand with the 172 Democrats that are so extreme in this House that they thought they could decriminalize carjacking and some forms of murder. But they changed their minds.
He's referring to a decision made by the White House and Senate Democrats to overturn D.C.'s criminal code reform. The White House initially said they opposed it. Then later, President Biden signed it into law, and Republicans are not letting him forget it. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
And joining us next to discuss, we have Bob Fu, a U.S.-based pastor who runs a nonprofit called China Aid, which provides support for people facing religious persecution in China. We'll discuss the Chinese regime's new methods of repression against those who speak out against the regime. Bob Fu, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Bob, I have to ask you, Axios has just reported that you've been a victim of a form of what they call doxing by the CCP, where they used your name to book a hotel and then began to cause trouble under that name. What can you tell us about this?
Well, that shows the Chinese Communist Party is pivoting for the new way of silencing these advocates for truth about the Communist Party's persecution and the international, transnational, actually repressive tactics. They want to silence their critics. They want to silence human rights organizations' voices. So that is the essence, and I'm so concerned those perpetrators are still at large. They are using their money, the CCP's money, and booking hotels that call under my name, under two other individuals, named in Europe. One of them is even a Radio Free Asia reporter, Ms. Su Yutong, and the other one was a young dissident refugee in Netherlands from China, Wang Jingyu. So basically, call the bomb threat, it not only wastes the international law enforcement resources from like more than a dozen of countries, but also in different states in the U.S. I was booked in different hotels, and certainly it posed a real threat. And at the same time, the CCP agents were even texting me directly to my cell phone, sending the death threats and calling me the enemy, and they're on the Satan side or something like that. If I continue to help, they will take action, as they threatened me. So this is a new level or new way the CCP try to intimidate, try to harass, try to silence, try to threat anybody who dare to say no to their repressive human rights, religious persecution, and worsening situation in China every day.
Bob, you've been targeted for being so outspoken when it comes to human rights abuses, specifically lending a voice to persecuted Christians inside of China. What can you tell us right now about the situation there for people that practice Christianity?
At our organization, China Aid, we have a mission to basically advance religious freedom for all and rule of law in China by exposing those abuses of the persecution, by encouraging those who are oppressed, by equipping them with the legal rule of law training. So accelerating kind of documentation about the CCP's new wave of persecution against the Christians, the Tibetan Buddhists, the Falun Gong practitioners, certainly the 1 million plus the Uyghur and the Kazakh and religious minorities in concentration camps. So I would say, based on the data and the level of persecution, the religious persecution has been sinking into the worst level we have not seen in 70 plus years. I think really the Communist Party now criminalize a very simple house of worship. Just to organize a peaceful prayer meeting is a crime. And just to basically gather your own family members at your own home to have a peaceful Sunday worship would warranty arrest. Demolition. There are multiple family members from the Early Rain Covenant Church just every week recently were being forcefully evicted and by the Communist Party security forces. Some members were beaten up, their senior pastor, Pastor Wang Yi, was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment for a national security crime called subversion for state power, and to do humanitarian work. Just because you have a Christian faith, you would be subject for sentencing of 7 years.
Bob Fu, really appreciate you sharing your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. God bless you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.